We got Travis Kelce coming in at number 7. He's been the number 1 tight end 4 or 5 straight years. He's been a top 12 wide receiver 4 straight seasons. So you're getting him at tight end at 7th. Eckler at 8, Zeke 9, Taylor 10. So we'll stop there and we'll go Kelce at 7, Eckler 8, Ezekiel Elliott 9, Jonathan Taylor 10. Dave, thoughts here and Kelce being ahead of those guys and just this group in general? Kelce, Eckler, Zeke, Taylor, 7 through 10.
I have no problem if a fantasy manager wants to take Kelce ahead of those running backs because they want to take the safe play and they want to get the tight end who plays like a top 12 wide receiver and you start him at your tight end spot. And maybe you just don't buy back into Zeke after what happened last year or Eckler, whatever. Go ahead and take Kelce. I can't fault anybody for doing that. The track record is too good. But I know that I can find a comparable tight end to Kelce if I'm at this point in round 1, 7th overall, when I'm back up on round 2. So if I have to have a tight end, if I got to have a top 3 tight end, I'm sure that one of Waller or Kittle will be there for me. It's a drop down from Kelce, but it's not that steep of a drop. And I know that I can land a running back, especially in PPR. I think Eckler or Taylor would be my favorite. Eckler close behind him. Those guys have a chance to get just huge numbers this year. Certainly in the pass game for Eckler.
So you saying you would not take Kelce ahead of?
I would not. I would take the running backs ahead of Kelce and cross my fingers that either a great tight end or a very good running back will make it back to me in round 2.
So, it's an interesting way of framing it, as saying that you can get Waller or Kittle in round 2. Yeah. Heath, anything to add here? Kelce, you do have Kelce ahead of all.
Yeah, I think I have Kelce 6th. I would just dispute that Waller, and maybe Kittle will be, but I don't view Waller or Kittle as really comparable tight ends to Kelce. I think he was 3 fantasy points a game better than Darren Waller last year.
More than that. I didn't say. I said that it was a drop, but not a steep drop compared to like if you punt on tight end and you're drafting Robert Tonyan in round 11.
For sure. Yes. Right. But I guess, and maybe it is
like if you want to have the tight end advantage. I'm sorry to cut you off, Heath. If you want to have the tight end advantage in your lineup, you can still do it in round 2. It's just not going to be as great as what it would be in round 1. And that's if Kelce matches what he did in 2020.
But he's been the best for
5 straight years. Yeah. 5 straight years has been tight end 1.
Right. I guess what you're talking about is the difference between Kelce and Kittle or Waller, and the difference between Taylor or Zeke and probably Chubb or Mixon.
Yeah, or not Najee Harris, or
Najee Harris, or whichever one of those guys you like better.
Yeah, there's so that you're talking about the mid-second round pick, whether you're going Kelce in round 1, running back in round 2, or running back in round 1 and Waller in round 2. The question is, do you have a chance to get George Kittle in round 3 or Waller in round 3? ADP would say no. They're going at the top. No, actually, I'm sorry. ADP would say yes. Kittle's going 29th or 30th. So you have a chance.
In a 10 team, you do.
No, because you're talking about the middle of, if you have the 7th overall pick, you're 31st?
Yeah.
In round 3. Actually you have a decent chance to get George Kittle there if you want him. So that's something to keep in mind. Doesn't seem like you have a great chance of getting Waller. It was 23rd overall in ADP, but Kittle's 31st. So, that's kind of an interesting risk to take there. But just not even thinking about the other stuff, Kelce, I don't think we have strong objections to him going this high. He's no lower than 9th in the rankings. Any strong objections or strong feelings about the 3 running backs in this range? Eckler, Zeke, Taylor. Is the order right? Are any of them second-round picks for you, Heath?
The order's right. The only thing is, this is the point after Kelce where I'm taking the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in PPR. So it's not necessarily I think I have it exactly Eckler, Elliott, Taylor. I may have Joe Mixon mixed in there somewhere. But I do in full PPR have Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, and DeAndre Hopkins ahead of that group.
I've got Taylor at the top of the group. Younger running back, good running team, great offensive line. No question about who's going to get short yardage goal line carries. I think there's an outside shot at him getting to 2,000 total yards. I really think he's that good. And I think double-digit touchdowns is absolutely going to happen. I have Zeke ahead of Eckler, even in PPR, because I'm worried about the touchdown production for Eckler. I'm positive that there's going to be a second running back in play. Eckler has never really been a short yardage goal line guy. He had one goal line carry last year, and it was a mess. And I expect Ezekiel Elliott to bounce back a little bit. So we'll see what training camp says, and we'll see if Tony Pollard ends up taking, decent chunk of work with the first team offense. And if that happens, then putting Eckler ahead of Zeke, especially in PPR, easy to do. But for now, that's how I have it. I've got Taylor, Zeke, Eckler, Kelce.
If you want to be optimistic about the touchdowns for Eckler, there are plenty of reasons to be pessimistic, as Dave just outlined. The first 4 games of 2019, when Melvin Gordon wasn't playing, he had 6 touchdowns. He had 3 rushing and 3 receiving touchdowns. Last year did not hold up because it was Kalen Ballage at the goal line, things like that. But there was
different quarterback too.
Yeah, different coaching staff.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this is a good transition into 11 and 12, which is Davante Adams and Tyreek Hill. And by the way, here's where Tyreek Hill, who's 12th, Adams is 11th, Tyreek Hill is 12th. I don't think Adams needs much justification as wide receiver 1 right now. This is assuming Aaron Rodgers is with the Packers. Hill, this is where he's finished per game in PPR in his last 4 seasons: 8th, 5th, 11th, and 2nd. He finished 2nd last year with 17 total touchdowns, 15 receiving, 2 rushing. I will question, should he actually be the number 2 PPR wide receiver? He's not a high catch guy. And like I said, 8th, 5th, 11th, and 2nd in full PPR. Not disagreeing, but questioning it, Heath. Do you think Tyreek Hill should be number 2?
If I think you could, could possibly be somebody else that jumps up and takes that from him. I just don't know which one it would be. Stephon Diggs basically scored the same number of fantasy points in his best season ever in one more game than what Tyreek Hill played last year. And I do think over the last couple of years, we've seen a little transition to more targets per game. I would anticipate that's going to continue with Sammy Watkins no longer on the roster. I don't feel real strong about Tyreek Hill as the number 2, but I feel less convinced about the guys behind him. And
Dave,
he's not a high catch guy, but he's not really a low catch guy anymore either.
Okay. Dave, when Heath already said once Kelce comes off the board, he's going with those wide receivers after that.
Same.
Okay, so you would take the wide receivers over Taylor?
I've got him ahead of Chubb, Akers, and Najee for now.
Okay, because you guys have Kelce in different spots. But when do you pull the trigger on your first wide receiver? Is it after Zeke?
I will go, yes. I will go with a wide receiver, and it's either going to be Adams or Hill, and it depends on the format. I will go with them when there isn't a running back that I'm convinced can have, a stellar season. And I like to do it when it's late in round 1 because I can go and get a running back in early round 2 that'll still be there. So what you want to do is, let's say you're up at 11 and both wide receivers are there. If you're indifferent to Adams and Hill and you think that the guy picking in the 12 spot, assuming 12-team league, is not going to go receiver, you can wait on making the receiver decision and take your favorite running back. Similarly, if you're indifferent to Chubb versus Akers versus Najee versus Antonio Gibson, whoever's left.
Mixon is next.
Mixon could be in that group. Yeah, absolutely. You take the receiver that you like better, and then you come back in round 2 and you take the running back. Or maybe if you want to do the 0 RB thing, you draft your favorite receiver, and then maybe the team in 12 takes 2 running backs, and you go, okay, cool, I'll take 2 of the best receivers in football and just load up Adams and Tyreek.
I wish I knew the draft that I did that in. I did that in a mock draft. I took both of them. I don't.
Do you remember what your running back? Did you feel the pressure to take a running back in round 3? Probably.
Oh God,
you probably didn't love what was left.
I'll just take a look at one team and see if this was the draft, but I can't really remember. Oh yes, sweet, this was it. Okay,
you nailed it.
Carson and Dobbins. This was a PPR draft.
You got Dobbins in round 4.
Yeah.
Oh.
Carson, Dobbins, Adams, Hill, Lamar Jackson. How did the rest of my team turn out?
Look, if it's Dobbins in 3 and Carson in 4, I'm not going to fight you on that at all. If you've got 2 receivers that are just locked in, like Adams and Hill figure to be all season long.
Yeah, I guess you could do worse than that. Okay.
You definitely could.
We could take a break here. When we come back, I teased this at the beginning of the show. What makes more sense? All right, because through one round, we've got 9 running backs, a tight end, and 2 wide receivers. What makes more sense? Taking the 10th best running back or the 3rd best wide receiver? What does history tell us? I will tell you that on the other side of the break.